Hello and welcome back. Diane Flabbot to stand down from Shadow Cabinet under new Labour leadership. Stand down, more like sit down. Am I right? Okay. So, Miss Flabbot has said she will quit the front bench of Labour when a new leader is elected. It seems that she wishes to stay true to Comrade Corbyn, her brother in arms, and therefore, when he finally departs and frolics off skedaddles into the wilderness where he belongs, she will step back to the backbenches. Yes, she'll have a bench, hopefully all to herself, because otherwise it might break under her weight, and be able to sit out of it and deal with the backbenches that she says need a lot of help, essentially. Not sure if she's the right person to deal with them, but I'm sure she'll give it 11-10%. Yes, she is that lady, of course, which the BBC even almost alludes to, as Miss Abbott, the Shadow Home Secretary, told Sky News, "Oh, BBC, you must feel so sad and left out that even Labour ignored you. Fucking hell." That whoever becomes leader, they have to be able to construct their own shadow cabinet. I'm sure you'll be in the shadows. Hang on, is that racist? Earlier, Jeremy Corbyn said he would consider a senior post under the new leader. Yes, because he thinks that he's actually still relevant. I mean, obviously his upper-class upbringing clearly gives him credence to understand what Labour need. In this ever-changing country of people, it's clearly the ethnic minorities who are becoming the majority that need help the most. And if you don't believe that, then clearly go speak to Jess Phillip and how she's dealing in Birmingham with the Muslims against the LGBTQ+, the alphabet people, however they may be. And then see how she is dealing with the current struggles, and yes, I use that word on purpose, seeing as the Arabic translation is jihad, and the German translation is Kampf, but how she is dealing with the particular struggles in her own constituency at this very moment. And if the alt-right had any sense, then I suppose they would try to join up with the Muslims, at least for the time being, in order to say, hey, we're on the same page, why don't we go deal with the gays or the transgenders or the alphabet people in order to get rid of them, and then, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and then deal with each other afterwards in a clash. I don't think that's a good idea at all, though, given that although it might cause Labour to get rid of the Muslims, you are then playing a very, very tense game in saying that if your final goal, alt-right, ethno-nationalist, whatever it might be, is to say you want Britain to be majority British, and I would say Britain should be completely British. This isn't skin colour, this is culture and ethnicity. This is people who assimilate to British. It's like the difference between the Hindus and the Sikhs from India, for example. That Sikhs seem to assimilate far better into being British than Hindus, for example. And Pakistanis, a whole different kettle of fish. Let's not open that can of worms. But nonetheless, that if you want to say that, and you're saying that it's bad to be gay or transgender or transtrender, then although yes, they might be for the decline of Western civilization, I think that making the enemy a person of your own country first isn't a good idea, because then you will need people to rally behind you in order to get rid of the foreign invaders as you see it. So it's very difficult to say that. It seems like you're going to have to team up with someone anyway. But nonetheless, I would be interested to see a very interesting coalescence between Muslims and right-wing. Anyone who's conservative, that is to say, socially conservative. I don't mean right-wing as in minimal government. I mean conservative. I mean conserving traditional values. And I don't mean what the Conservative Party has become, which is just 5-15 years behind the Labour Party. Whatever they find the Labour Party in objectional as far as social policies are concerned, they then follow them up. I mean actually going back to more the root cause that created the agricultural revolution, that led to the industrial revolution, that led to the technological revolution, which we are currently in. I mean those kind of traditional values. But then again, seeing as tradcon, traditional conservative, is now a phrase within its own right, I suppose that isn't what the Conservatives are anymore, and that is actually acknowledged further and wider than the Conservatives would like it to be. But back to the topic in hand of Flabbot having a sit-down. Miss Abbott said she would be backing Rebecca Long-Bailey as her choice for Labour's replacement leader. Well, of course you would. Find the most communist person you can, the most far left. And it is intriguing, of course, that for whatever bloody reason, that cultural Marxists seem to have a thing with communists. I mean, historically, of course, Stalin being the main one for the USSR didn't take kindly to different races at all. And it's the difference, I suppose, with expansionist between being, the right wingers are imperialistic, but the left wingers are supposedly revolutionary. So nonetheless, they wish to invade into other countries. Hence, in the Cold War, we had so many proxy wars, which was just the US and Russia going against each other in a different place, which they're still doing in the Middle East, but particularly then, of course, it was Korea and Vietnam, for example, the North and South divides. But now they seem to be liking all the sorts of things which Stalin was opposed to, why the mobile gas chambers were invented by the Soviets to begin with. Mobile gas chambers is just a fancy word for saying a van with an airtight container in the back, and the exhaust fumes were pumped in. That was it. That was simply it. And yes, they made it before the Germans did, because they were using the carbon monoxide poisoning from the engine instead of Zyklon B. So, nonetheless, getting out of the death style and death squads of communists back to the current communists, would be back to Rebecca Long-Bailey, yes. 3 candidates were running for leader: Miss Long-Bailey, Lisa Nandy, and Sir Keir Starmer. And Sir Keir Starmer seems to be the main frontrunner as well, not least because of his knighthood, of course, which has actually been recognised by somebody else, by a lady nonetheless. But he still seems to be the frontrunner. Oh, another straight white man. Oh, what are the odds? Voting begins on Monday with a new leader announced on 4th of April, and we're all looking so forward to that. Who's going to lose to Johnson next? Miss Flabbot, MP for Hackney North and Stoke Newington, said she would be returning to the backbenches where there's an awful lot to do. Are you sure you're the one to do it? Reinforce the backbenches. Wide load coming through. Miss Abbott was the first black female to be elected to Parliament in 1987. Well done. What a stroke of luck. You're in the right place at the right time, but nonetheless, you're in the history books. Well done. She made history in October 2019 by becoming the first black MP at the dispatch box of Prime Minister's questions in place of Mr. Corbyn. Yeah, but she doesn't seem to do so well on TV, does she? I mean, I'm not saying there's a bit of a conspiracy here, but if voting was done based on competence and policies instead of skin colour and demographics, I'm guessing she wouldn't have done nearly so well after her television appearances, given how meme-worthy and atrocious they have been. But nonetheless, she is actually taking a back seat, quite literally with the backbenchers, and there might actually be a worthy opponent. Of course there won't, because it's Labour, but nonetheless, it comes to the always important distinction, and I believe it was a US president, and I can't remember who it was. No, I'm not sure who it was. But they said that, as much as it sounds like a Churchill quote, the right wing relies on logic and the left wing relies on rhetoric. And until you can transpose the two, you're always going to have a battle between them. So the best of both will have the right wing logic, things that clearly, evidently work, doesn't matter, it actually makes sense. But you have to combine it with the left wing of things that sound nice and feel nice and give people that warm fuzzy feeling who vote on emotions and feelings instead of facts. So that's what you have to combine for the two. And this is why everything is sales. And if you want a tip, a very easy way is to explain it through a story. You create characters that are relatable and you use it based in fact. So you have all the facts on your side, so that when you make this story and you create a character that your target audience can relate to, they do. And then they see your point because they see themselves as that character. They no longer see you as the narrator, they see themselves as the character. So you do that, and then you create the outcome that you want, which makes sense because of the logic that you've predisposed them to, which is just universally true instead of cherry-picked like the left do. And therefore, you come out with somebody who is not only understanding of the final outcome on a logic level, but is actually emotionally invested in the outcome. And that is how you sell. And that is how you win elections. But hey, what do I know? So until next time, Stay happy, folks, and keep on selling.